Hello, this is Lisa Lee, and welcome to this week's enrichment reading. We are getting into it. I don't know how, I don't know what, and I don't know where, but I sat down, and I want to say that I've never sung my way through a meditation before, and yet the spirit of the energy of this particular conversation that we're about to embark on was one that, like, I broke into song, I channeled in song. No, I didn't record it, and I don't know that I could ever do something like that. But the experience, like the felt personal experience of that was pretty freaking rad, I will say. So wherever we're going, it starts in song, and so there's something really cool about that. Let's take a look. So, oh, nice. We're working on trust, and we're working on trust in a way. We are gonna sidestep all of the mamby-pamby about, like, we want to trust, we are going to learn how to trust, this is what we're doing, it's time. We talked about forgiveness, we circled back to forgiveness, and we know that that's actually you want to hold power. Essential to holding power and what it means to hold power is to first understand that you can't have vengeance and power in the same place without having destruction, and no deity field in its right mind would give the children of God and Goddess that kind of power and that kind of destruction. And the capacity to do so was so catastrophic to the whole that, you know, there's these cycles of shake-up and rebirth that we're all a part of, and we are all forced into an evolution of the whole. And an evolution of the whole is not something that we don't arrive to perfection when we're in a creature of evolving and evolution. And so there is a spell cast about an arrival and a perfection and a being somewhere that it's perfect or transforming into a perfection. And when we enter the territory that we're entering, which, you know, it starts under the mantle of trust, but we enter under the mantle of trust and into this field and into this huge environment of what it means to actually learn true trust. And to learn true trust is also to master forgiveness. And to let go of vengeance when there is so much injustice means that we believe that we are not the center of the universe, and that whatever the evolution is doing and working its way towards, and it's an evolving creation that is adapting in a relationship. And I think the first thing we want to understand about what divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy is, the first thing that is so essential for us to understand is that it's not gender. Gender is something. There's no two ways about it. Gender is the expression of these energies in so many beautiful ways, and on such a spectrum of, like I see, just refracting light and colors. You know, like when you think about the fractal pattern and you think about how the expression within its greater expression, you know, that's gender expresses this concept. But at its heart, what these two energies, these two halves of reality are. There's two halves of reality. There's the inner reality and there's the outer reality. And so when we talk about what the relationship between these two are, we are talking about that is the relationship between the energy of the divine masculine and the divine feminine aspect of God within you that is creating your divinity, and you're the expression of that combination. And those two things working it out, the inner reality and the outer reality working it out, is the relationship between the divine masculine aspect of God and the divine feminine aspect of God, and God being the source of creation. And so, like, when we enter into this notion of trust, first we have to say, like, do we trust the world outside of us? No, not at all. Okay, do we trust the world inside of us? Like, yes and no. You know what I mean? Like, there's this relationship that's going on within us that is part of the working it out, that is part of the machine of the evolution that we are a part of. And so when I started entering this week, and I didn't know what I was looking at this week, I was like trying to figure out the story between the sun and the earth. I was walking my dog, you know, like thinking about like the sun that comes down and then it makes this growth and there's this response and these two things going on. And I was just thinking, you know, one informs the growth of the other. They're looking at each other. There's like there's a relationship to what is the earth, what is the goddess. She is the infinite forms that life takes. The goddess is the infinite forms that life takes, and everything in between, and the expression of all of that. And what is the sun gazing upon her, inspiring this reaction? That is a love story, but it's also like her creation right now, because of the influence of this sun and the sun's energy, is attacking her at a level And it operates around this notion of like the consciousness is expressing itself as like antagonistic. And like when we really study nature and we really study the ecosystem of the god and goddess that we're in, we're stepping out of duality, and we're looking at nature and what inspires life in nature, and there's a relationship that we can observe, and it mirrors a relationship that we have within ourselves. And everything expands together, everything breathes together, everything expands together. And so how do we trust? Like it's like a huge question. And so that's like, that just channeled through like very intensely for me. So the thresholds and beginnings, and the alchemical wand, and the exchange between worlds, and the loss and replenishment of hope, and the inexhaustible supply. That's where we're going to start this. Let's look at the beginning, and let's look at these relationships. And I called in the energy of the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, and I called them to operate through my conscious experience and to see with me and through me and to inform that site. It's a good prayer. I do suggest it because it's a good spell. It's like, oh, the source of my creation in parental form, like, you know, in wherever they can meet me in love. Let's experience together, because I'm looking at this exchange and it's all shaky. Feeling like I'm in like a house where they're like, you know, maybe they're not getting along with the storms being what they are. There seems to be like fighting that's loud right over like the areas where that are underwater. So this threshold and beginnings, and like let's think about threshold and beginnings and the relationship of life on Earth, you know, and all of its creation. And like we have to start with this notion of like the reality of storms. And the reality of storms within ourselves. Like we're not always going to get along with the external circumstances that we're in, and we're going to have to adapt to them. And that's going to be a painful experience for us to do. But ultimately we are adapting to like what we are forming by and with. So what's an example of that? The baby in the belly. And so with this exchange between worlds, you know, when you are in the belly of the mama, when you are growing in the womb of the womb, when you're having your womb world dreams and encountering all of these traits and taking them on as you encounter them in your dream world, with this death and rebirth cycle here, you know, this is going to be like an experience of something enters into the matter that is life. Something inspires this, there's something being held, you know, from an outside galaxy, from an outside universe. And you can look at the sun and you can say like, you know, that the sun sort of does ejaculate, whatever. Like if you think about it, what are these solar flares? The sun is having solar flares. You know, it's like there's some sort of like energetic ejaculation that is like hitting the earth, and the earth is having photosynthesis with her experience of, you know, receiving this gaze, receiving this interaction. And so the first thing that we're looking at is, it's almost like she traps the sun. You know what I mean? She brings that essence into herself, and then that essence has to adapt to her form and feel itself and in relationship to her form. And it is contingent, its life becomes contingent on like what it's given in the way to be formed and informed by. At a very cosmic level, this is like the struggle of evolution. And so it's not a love relationship like it's happy and dancing. It's storms. You know, like we are in a reality we're constantly trying to find ways to escape. And when we talk about spirituality, you know, sometimes we're talking about how can I escape this world that I'm in, this life that I'm in, this experience that I'm having. That's understandable, because you're the impulse that is 50% the impulse of the sun, that wants to be free of a form because it's used to shining on the horizon, looking upon everything with its magnificence, unbound and unbound by. But the baby soul, as it expands within us and like experiences our conscious, you know, perspective, this baby that is born of these two energies coming together, like there is a friction, there is a confrontation almost. And so one of the things that we have to understand about the modern worldview is the modern worldview is articulated, our frustration with evolution, as a process that forces us to be informed by something when we are us. And we want to actually say, no, we inform you, nature. Nature, you may come with storms, but we are going to make bulletproof house cubes, you know, so that we don't have to be bothered by your weather. Like we have a relational problem, even in our own bodies, when it comes to like the impulse to like get up and run around and having to go to work. What the hell is that? Why do you have to adapt to that? I don't know. Why do I? How can we break it? See how it's like it's energies interacting, not so much the narrative stories that hold those energies. And so we're always going to have to, in some way, as the conscious creation of both of these energies, contend with a relationship between those two halves of ourselves. And so when we think about trusting ourselves and trusting the world, like right there, we have to stop everything and start somewhere else. And so with this Sun card, the Knight of Swords, the Ace of Wands, the King of Swords, and the Death and the Rebirth, that's the sun as the beginning. You know, we're talking about this gaze. And the alchemical wand is this, it's this meeting of two types of worlds, two types of essences. It's where the outer the outer cosmic universe and the inner cosmic universe meet and create something completely unique and new in its own expression, which is infinite and exists forever and ever. And it's the communication device that enables coherence between these two energies. This relationship is about like knowing themselves. There's what is this? It's this. So we're reading this book, this Hindu book for our book study, and I'm gonna be terrible with pronunciation, and hopefully everybody can forgive me. I have excuses, like lots of them, why like I have trouble with perfect auditory processing when it comes to like language. Like I see symbols and it's weird. But the world discovered by Brahma, I think that's how it's pronounced, is embodied in the goddess. And I'm taking a quote off of I like keep little quotes. They're like inspirational quotes, but for me they're just like God things. The world discovered by Brahma is embodied in the goddess. She has always existed. She takes infinite forms. She takes infinite forms. So that's like the number one thing to remember about her. In her infinite form, she reflects the answer to Brahm's question, who am I? The question is the impulse of creation. It made God open his eyes and look at the goddess. That's inside. That's a phenomenon on the inside. And so when you understand that like the goddess she takes infinite form, she's all the life in life. And we're the impulse that is experiencing itself in like relationship to her dictates and edicts, like weather. And this knowing ourselves, we can't know ourselves without her. We can't know ourselves without the external stimulation. We can't grow or even exist without that encounter with that which is not us or isn't us, but also a unique expression of its own. Like we have to contend with the diversity. And so if we understand that the question of who am I and the world around us reflecting back is the central thing. And it's a central thing when it comes to learning how to trust ourselves and trust the world outside of us, and trust divinity, and trust like what any of that means. And so this Knight of Swords, like we're this alchemical wand, where these alchemy, these energies come together. Like look at us, you know, we're sad, like we're angry, you know, like why are we like this? Why is it cold? Like why is it so hot? You know what I mean? Like this is sort of like, and I have to make light better. I'm actually moving locations, so I'll have better light. Yeah. So this is this cool, not so cool experience of life. And so when we sort of have to sort of reckon with like, what the heck are we actually dealing with? Now, there is escape in every aspect of this lived experience, whether it be altered states, quite literally going and like finding means to alter the state, you know what I mean? Even like if that means like yoga, you know, or if it means like a drink, whatever, like altering the states, like that's, we have escape like latches in the experience of living. We have lots that we can curl up with the mother in lots of different ways. And then we can kind of have lots of experiences of the divine spark sort of bringing us into like motivation and agency, and what does it mean to take dominion over the world that we're in, so that we can have some like influence on the growth that is expanding and what we're becoming. How do we take our control back from the mother who is controlling us? Like this is something that plays itself out in nature in terms of like, we see these examples everywhere. We're reading the Bible of nature. And all of the ways in which these things express within us and they work themselves out, like the storm within, like how are we, what is the form that we are in? What is the evolution that is happening right now? In the forms that we're taking in resonance with her or against her. I mean, we're really working with a lot of like conversation at an energetic level. And so this exchange between worlds and this Ace of Wands, this passion that is brought through the experience of forming against a form that is forming us, forming with a form that is forming us? What are the languages? How do you learn to speak them? What are these energies? What do they say? Are they alive? Are they not? I have some quotes up, and one of the other quotes that I have is the primal worldview and the modern worldview, and I think I've read these before. In a modern worldview, all qualities associated with purposeful intelligence and soul are exclusively characteristic of the human subject, which radically distinct from the objective non-human world. The modern worldview is that all qualities associated with purposeful intelligence are like the individual, the person, and everything else is subject to that person's objective domain. And the primal worldview is different. The primal worldview is, in the primal worldview, intelligence and soul pervade all of nature and the cosmos, and a permeable human self directly participates in the larger matrix of meaning and purpose within which it is fully embedded. One is the fetus in the womb, having the experience of the mother's body and its own body, and by extension what the mother's experiencing beyond her body, and in a languageless place of like influence and interaction. All that came before that is within her forms, that is going into the experience of forming in that womb, and the encounters therein and the traits taken from them, all in this dream space of her unconscious experience. This nesting doll, it goes on and on and on and on. It's so beautiful, it almost just like knocked me out of orbit. And it happens over and over and over and over again. There's no stopping the expression and the relationship and the relating in this cosmic dance. And so that's the primal worldview. And the modern worldview is the one we're in, where like I have got to make sure that no matter what, the weather does not get me. I have to do whatever it takes to not be uncomfortable. I have to maximize comfort levels and minimize pain thresholds. And so this inexhaustible supply with death kind of speaks to the fact that the mother, she's infinite. The divine feminine aspect of God, she's infinite. The divine masculine aspect of God, he's infinite. They are in a relationship that is producing life right now and forever. They are that cosmic entanglement. We are a part of that, and we participate in both her expression and his impulse. And we do it over and over and over and over again. And so, when we look at it, we have to have the form that we're informed by, which means that we have to look at these structures in nature and we have to decipher them, and we have to put them in a form that can inform our faith, that can be the container that we put our belief in, that causes the placebo effect of healing ourselves through belief to actually work on every possible level. Because human potential tells us that we can see beyond our limitations and always create into the space that's just before us, and that's an inexhaustible supply. If we're cut off and cut into lifespans, and if those lifespans are trying to overtake the process, there's a conversation at play in what it means to be in an evolving world with an evolving consciousness that is the life that is produced between the two substances that are within us, and we're doing this consciousness thing. That's how we're all one. How are we all individuals and also all one? How are we both the primal worldview that is within the womb and also the individual aspect that is the fetus's spirit and soul interacting with the traits in a dream world and becoming itself? How are these two things, at play? And the friction is necessary too. And so the first thing that we want to understand is that the Divine Mother is infinite, the Divine Father is infinite, and the creation between the two, the consciousness, is infinite. What we are, what we truly are, is consciousness that is infinite. That is our infinite lifespan right there. That is the heaven or the hell that we choose it to be, depending on how we see things and how we choose to interact with the matter that we get to create with from the perspective of consciousness forever. We co-create with this. We co-create the matter that we're in. And I'm just taking a moment to take a breath, because it's so hard to articulate some of this stuff, and I get sensations from all the energies around me that it's like a ripple effect. So when you think about these two energies and what consciousness is, when we say we are all one, we are within the whole, we are within the universe, we are within the closed system, the cells within our bodies are within a closed system, we are all one and we are also many. We're talking about this interaction, but that means that consciousness is one. Consciousness is one experience. Consciousness is where you're born and then you exist forever in that space of consciousness, always having consciousness. Consciousness is both the ability to channel and be channeled. Consciousness is an endless conversation of evolving self-concept. And this is how the whole's brain works. All these synapses going through all of these channels. What was once a channel becomes a synapse. What was once a synapse becomes a channel. That's the life and death rebirth process within the mind of the whole. And we participate with that endlessly. That is our role. Now, it's not a perfect process, it's an evolving process. And there's the micro and there's the macro and there's the individual and then there's the whole. And there's infinite lifespans, but there's not infinite experiences of the same self. That's like the bigger system that can help us sublimate all fears we have about why we're stuck in a system to begin with. But it's also important for us to know that yes, we are all one, but we're not erasing each other into one essence or substance. That's where we have to watch the two aspects that are most dangerous to trust. And that's going to be the aspect of the mother that is the shadow, and the aspect of the father that is the shadow. The aspect of the mother that is the shadow is she consumes her children. The aspect of the mother that is in ascended form, is the one who nurtures. And there's this symbiotic relationship between how she cares for herself and how she's cared for and how she can care for her creation. And we have a responsibility in what that means. And so, let's look at it. This is a really strong, like powerful, beautiful channel that's coming through. This is going like very fast too. So trust is not like something that we can, I think that part of what it means to come into a really powerful spiritual practice is to like look at stuff so honestly and like gritty, and like the kingdom of heaven on earth is something that we create from a consciousness and a conscious space, from a relationship that we have with the underworld too. To be able to like see between the veil. What it is to have a veil removed, or to see between the veil, is to have a conversation between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, where one is not taking over the other, and we can make sense of what would be incoherent in the way of like input that is like, we have to be selective about what we pay attention to. Like in some ways it's the nervous system and the automatic nervous system, and we don't want to be informing the automatic nervous system. It's working perfectly on its own. That's when we trust that the fourth and the fifth and the other dimensions all have their place in the body and their function in the body. Where we understand the unconscious mind to be sort of a dangerous dark place is where we have like unlooked at impulses and parts of self, and like just looking at the environment that we're in, where we don't respect that we're part of the whole and we are one, even though we're different. That's an incoherence. And so the incoherence is conscious because it's unconscious to a certain extent. And so to bring those unconscious stuff forward to look at through conscious review, that's sort of bringing all of the perspectives of all the ancestors into a new perspective, and then there's a leveling up for the whole. There's an evolution for the whole, and there's a participation in that evolution. And so we have these amazing technologies just like at our fingertips, and what it is to like have unlimited potential when it comes to bridging this gap. But we also have to do it in a coherent, sane way, which means we don't lose ourselves to one aspect over the other. We need balance, or we go back and forth from like a toxic patriarchy to a toxic matriarchy, and the cycles have to start. So what it is for us to evolve as a being, as a whole, as a coherence, is to say like we need the shadow and the light, we need the friction for the evolution, but we also need a coherence that says being informed by the process of our ancestors and what made them is a powerful thing, but we're also driving the car. And so we have to have this relationship of inner authority, inner sun, inner impulse, that dictates what it's going to become based on its experience, versus the external experiences that are so many forms that you can get swallowed over and over and over and over again and lose that essence. And so it's like, how do you negotiate with these experiences, that stimulating environment of like the mother that is informing you, but also be choosing your own traits and your own development moving forward, participating in that evolution. And a lot of it is pruning, like a lot of it is really hard work. A lot of it is pruning, especially when you're in this, it actually is pruning. Let's look at that. I'm seeing cool vision right now. Yes, indeed. This is talking about how we trust ourselves to a certain extent. Look, it's the dark mother, the shadow mom. Is she making them herself, or is she allowing them to have their own expression? And that's a difficult thing to negotiate. And we're also meant to see with this map that it's about traveling a distance from inside to out and outside to in. It's a negotiating that happens. So I hear the song, "Take a Look at Me Now." I don't know anything else about it. I just hear that one. Look at this exchange between worlds. Yep. Okay. I feel like I need one more card. Nope, that's it. Okay. So that's pretty intense. And that's hard too. This Knight of Swords. All right, let's see this. So when we have the Devil, what is enslaving you? So when we first enter into this experience of matter and the mother and the womb, we're going to have a limited gene pool in which we can express our traits and this is not really limited at all, because it's all of humanity. But there's something here about like what is taking root to grow through you. What are you bringing into the world with you? What is your perspective doing in the way of like a feedback loop as like consciousness progresses? What is your role here as the conscious observer? Because you're getting an opportunity as the expression of consciousness to see yourself over and over and over and over in distinct forms that the mother gives you so that you can understand yourself. That little quote again, like, where is it? The infinite form she reflects the answer to Brahma's question, who am I? The answer to who am I? The question is the impulse of creation, divine masculine. It made God open his eyes and look at the goddess, divine feminine. And this is something inside, and something like this is something we're experiencing when we live. And so what we do in the way of pruning and defining who we are in her, with this seeing and seeing, this experiencing ourselves as seeing and seeing, is pruning away like that which we are not. Those forms that seek to take us into itself and be informed by us. We're deciding whether or not we're going to participate with that relationship and inform that person's form or that job's form or that opportunities form. We choose where we're going to put our life force and how our life force is going to express through the structures that are around us. And there's nature, and then there's the nature of man, and both are aspects of the divine feminine. How is the nature of man an aspect of the divine feminine? Because it's our nature within nature, responding to the nature. Like it's hard to look at this, honestly. A lot of this is like, let me just get a grip. There's constantly archetypal forms that are a part of what the divine feminine aspect of God is made of, that are enticing you into participating life, expressing them. Archetypal stories. Especially when you're growing up and you look at all the stories that you could participate in and you're like, I'm going to be punk, like I'm going to participate in that story. And and then that's a story of rebellion and wearing rebellion and talking with rebellion and walking with rebellion and being the rebellion in the world because you can see the need for it and you want to express it and it wants to be expressed and you're in partnership in that co-creation of that aspect of evolution. And as we participate in this way with all of the forms that she is, when it comes to informing the form that we are being formed by, where it's relationship, where we're in a relationship with our mother and we are informing who she becomes, because we're insisting that she looks outside of herself and sees us and then we can mirror back and she's mirroring back. To prune away like that which we're not gonna participate in is also helping her inform the form that she takes in her evolution. We are in a relationship. We are in a dance with creation in this way. We are in communication. We do have agency. We can pray. We are in communication with the whole. It responds to us. We are responsive to it. That is a fundamental fact of everything, because when you have an idea, it doesn't just come because you just have an idea. That idea comes from someplace. That impulse is given life through the experience of ancestors who once had experiences like that, and they coalesced in a quantum entanglement of like a moment in time where the two memories elapsed between timelines within you on DNA strands, and there you had your idea. It's not just you, it's the she that informs you. It's the he that is that impulse to say whatever it is that information was and bring it into matter with sound. We're in a magical situation. Whether we realize it or not, we are in a magical situation, and there are magical things happening with us, through us, around us. And this coherence about the relationship that we're in, first we have to identify that we're at odds with ourselves, and the world is at odds with itself, and that those things correspond. I'm hearing our ancestors say, the mighty little me, looking at our modern world, the mighty little me, the mighty little me. When are we being the mighty little me instead of the abundant she? And they are in relationship with each other, because the mighty little me is the abundant she's most beloved, most adored, most perfect, evolving relational aspect of creation that she is growing with and being informed by and changing form to accommodate, so that her form can be as rich as it can possibly be, as varied, and her depth of field can be endless, and her creative capacity can be an inexhaustible supply. And death and rebirth is a big part of that. That's a big part of her plan. It's a big part of who she is. It's a big part of the mother that she is. She's not letting you stay the same. She's not letting you be small so that she can, whatever that might be. There's challenges here, and you are meant to sort of look at this environment and the things that are the tree that is trying to grow into the foundation of your house. Yes, it is mighty. Yes, it is majestic. Yes, it is the mother. But you're going to inform the mother that you need a house because it rains on you, and you didn't have the fur that she gave some others. But she gave you the mind that makes a house. And so she's going to let this happen, where the tree is informed by her other form, the nature of man, in order to create and co-create into this space a community of life that is her and that is us, and that is not exploitive in one direction or the other, but also makes room for the augmentation on her form that is the relationship that is informed by our differences. There's a lot going on here that is bigger than us, and that we can't distill down to like evaporating into another thing. Because there's always going to be things competing to anchor into the form that you are creating from. You are making these beautiful flowers, and there's always going to be an inspiration by way of the sun that says, make me into a beautiful flower like this. And then there's going to be this anchor, this seed that lands that says, let me grow in this way and in that way. And there's a relationship here. And so the relationship with this devil, though, you know what I mean? No one wants to deal with the devil. No one wants to deal with that. This is something that's gone awry. There's something between the Divine Mother and the Divine Father that is interrupting their flow of creative capacity and starting to take some of their creatures, and they're going extinct because something's going on. Something is enslaving the potential of what they're creating. There's something here that is trying to take and hijack this situation. There is something going on. Now, there's a lot of different ways to look at this, and it's just a sickness in consciousness is the best way that I could explain it. So clearly, we can look out upon the landscape of what's happening within the whole, and how this is all operating through the external experience of the it's funny because you can call it the stimulating environment. And so when you think about being in the womb is the environment that stimulates your growth and your experience and all of the varied life moments of what's going on. I'm moving, there's stimulating environment of the mother, or you could say the simulation of what it is to be in a body for a certain period of time. We get to see ourselves through any story, through any series of stories. We jump into this experience of matter and this relationship with the mother to be formed and informed by her, and we get to experience her influence, her mothering. But we go in a life and death cycle which means that we can experience it in this way and that way and the other. There's no jealousy ever needed, because if you want to, you're going to get to go through this life, and then you have a life review and you learn all these things, and you can look back and you can say, I want to experience the life of Joan of Arc. Okay, sure. You're all the same consciousness. There is not a property. There's not an intellectual property to the experience of life. There's not and this is why we have so many people who can remember their past life as some historical figure or another. We don't have the containers are like, this is that primal worldview. But there is an individual impulse and an individual expression of each and every one of us as we move into a womb space and create into a future as something new. Because that's a different experience than going back at being able to be a spirit that can go and experience the life of another with that other. And we do that, our ancestors do that with us. They experience our life with us. The experience of creating new life and being a part of the creation of new consciousness, that's going in an unknown, uncharted territory, like a form that is informed by, informs you. And your very particular essence, which is, it's forever. Your consciousness is forever. Your conscious experience and everything that you end up with, when the body is no longer here and your thinking mind is observing and making ideas and thoughts and insights and moving into life and influencing that life in that way and being a part of this creation of evolution. This enslavement is going to be where we have some trying to take dominion over the experience of life, trying to take dominion over either the body of the earth or the body of a woman, or the body of another human being, trying to take dominion over something that is living and that is conscious, and build some kind of a permanence that keeps it from growing and changing, and that is somehow tyrannically informed by like a control freak of this is where creation has this 10 of Swords problem. This is a problem. And so let's take a look and see what we can get with that, because I feel like we need more cards. Because when we think about what's going to anchor in here, you've got the sun that is informing, the growth, and then you've got the growth and the body. You got it. The body is nature. The body is nature. That's why we don't want to age, but we age. That's why we get sick sometimes, because it's being nature. So that's why the hurricane that comes through or the sickness that comes through, same thing, both can destroy your house. Both can actually take you out. Same exact thing. And so when we think about what it is that like we have these structures that we are informed by, that we were just given, and that we have to have this perspective with the mother and with the father in order to bring consciousness into a certain kind of evolution and harmony. This is how consciousness is born, and it is in the existence of both aspects and like seeing each other through us, with us. And so when we have the stuff that we're stuck with, that's going to be the archetypes that we were meant to experience. And how we can change those archetypal experiences is cutting down those like structures as they are and pushing that evolution form into a new form. And so there are things that are going to want to anchor in us, and then we're going to have to inform those forms and change those forms. So there is a contentious relationship with what we have to deal with in the way of a life circumstance, and the decisions that we were forced into or made or didn't know any better, or whatever it is that made the external environment one that you have to contend with, even when you just want to go out and like get some sun and have like a sandwich. Okay. This anchor that says like, no, you're doing this, and it being a tyrannical energy, this devil, like this is where the shadow of one aspect is at play with the shadow of another to a certain extent. That which is taking dominion over that which wants to express, instead of having a conversation and coming to a nice place with it. And so we have to do something about the as within, so without. And this part where we change ourselves, the first thing that we're looking at when we change ourselves is, escaping the matrix is maybe like something that we have to rethink a little bit, in terms of like, why not just change it from within if we have the power to inform how it works by way of our conscious expression and our conscious connection. My guys are like, it's okay. Like my guys are like telling me to like calm down. I get really wrapped up when information comes through. And I can kind of hear what what I'm getting, and I'm like, whoa. So this is interesting here. Yeah, self-soothing and symbols. So when we think about, how do we work with like the mechanics of evolution at a cosmic level, we come into the world that is a bunch of forms that the mother exists as, and it's infinite forms nearly. And then we interact with those infinite forms to create new forms that she now exists with. And so when you think about these aspects of things that want to root in us, there's a lot of competition for our attention and our creative capacity and what we have to offer in the way of living tangible channels. There's a lot of competition, and we're going to take in and operate with what we resonate with, and that's going to be our learning curve. And so there's not like a wrong or a right with what you're doing. It's just, what are you resonating with? Do you want to continue to resonate with it? Do you want to prune the tree? Do you want a different tree? Do you not want these roots influencing you? Do you want to be influenced by something new? Like, what does it mean to garden here? Because this energy of the structure is always going to operate. It's always going to enter it as a shadow that wants to consume you into itself and make you itself's representation in the world. It offers a certain kind of seduction. And then you get kind of mired in whatever this archetype is. It's sort of like having a crush. When you have a crush on someone and you're in love with the archetype, you don't know them that well yet. You just know their archetype. You know the mythology, which is like the persona, and so then you're like in love and like, this is the one, this is everything. You get into that relationship and it's like, maybe it meets expectations a certain kind of way. But when it goes from the archetype to the individual who is just like a crab apple and not motivated and like angry and like, like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, then we have to deal with like, wait a minute, what are we working with here? How do we work with it? How do we prune away some of the stuff that's not serving the growth? How do we interact with being like, compromising here and there? Like, there's a lot that goes into relating. And so this relating is like, the distance between when the archetype approaches with like, as the love of your life, and then the relationship, and they're like, their socks are on the floor, and we've like talked about this, so this is kind of like, the macro and the micro here, like, these things are always playing themselves out, because these things are always playing themselves out. And so this like 10 of swords, this devastation in terms of who we are, what we are, the alchemy of the experience, and the balance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine substance within us and outside of us, like, things are not as we want them to be. And so it seems like it's out of our control, but we actually are meant to participate in like what it means to bring the order to the chaos, but not as an opposing force or a dominating force, but in relationship too. So we have to learn how to have a relationship between these two factions, between these two halves of reality in our bodies, and then we can like bring that into the world. Now we're representing divinity in the world, and it is not easy. This is not easy. There's 10 of swords. There's how can you love your mother when she has done you so dirty? She's done you so dirty. Think about it. Just aging in and of itself, she's doing you dirty. You are vital and you are alive. Like, what are you doing? Like, why am I tired? And it's like only like 3 o'clock. Like, what the hell's going? This is not it. That's like, how do we reconcile that? Or how do we reconcile like the father who's a tyrant? Like, he doesn't ever want to go outside and experience chaos. He wants everything totally in order, and then he gets numb. Like, how do we reconcile with these two parts of ourselves that are constantly like, trying to control the situation and control the growth? And so this 10 of swords kind of speaks of like, this escape has to do with kind of a relationship with chaos and change that isn't tyrannical. This week I was talking to my guides about like my shadow tends to like operate at like, I guess it's because of the way that I have a certain like synesthesia with like symbols and stuff like that. My shadows do so often for me operate externally. Like, and I think that like for people with second sight, however it manifests, and sometimes it manifests in scary ways, because like it's gonna be like your unconscious like stuff, and so when we think about this death and rebirth cycle, and then you see like you have like dreams, where like there's a vision where like somebody you're eating your own foot or something like that, this is all related to like this struggle between the things we have no control over. And so when we think about this, trying to escape the things we have no control over, trying to escape nature, trying to escape our own nature, that's not going to work. But at the same time, we have to be reborn again into a new form. And so like the self-soothing here and like knowing what we are, we vacillate between like, this is really limiting and shitty, and like the magic to constantly and endlessly co-create with two forces of nature that are like, that you have magic, you materially can create magical things. There's an infinite ability there and an infinite potential there, and then just like the grief, the undeniable grief of like having a headache on a day when you had so much to do. Like, this is a seesaw. And that's why we have this 10 of Wands, like breaking point. We have a breaking point. You know, how do we trust ourselves when we're subject to the weather of the body and we're subject to the weather of the outside world? We don't have all powerful. We're not all powerful. We're never going to be all powerful. We're never going to have dominion over all things in every way. We're never going to reach a certain perfection. We are a part of a body that is evolving, which necessitates change. And so this notion of you know, to be happy is to have no attachments. Like, there's something to that. But where we go with spirituality often is the escape route. And when we lose all attachment, when we vanish into the white light, you know, when we take in that one altered state and try to replicate it over and over and over again, that's where, you know, for like, and even for me to an extent, I have a version of that, you know, which is just keeping a homeostasis where I'm not letting other, you know, energies like infiltrate too much. And that is a sense of self, and that is self-possessed, that is inner authority, that is sort of mastery over the divine masculine aspect of self. But what it is not is an interaction that allows for relationships, right? And so like, we have to be able to think about like, this relationship that we have to our divine feminine aspect is also our relationship that we have to the chaos of becoming, you know, in an environment that we can't control. We can't control the nature of another person. We can't make sure that no matter what, that person won't kill you. You can try to do a lot of things to keep it from getting to that point. And we are meant to inform the chaos with a certain kind of like expression that takes what we need to create the consciousness and the potential and the experience of what is created between these two forces. So when we look at this chicken with all of the little chicks crossing the road, there's order here. There is something in the way of creating order. There's something in the way of being responsible to be the conscious aspect of the interrelatedness between the substance of God and the substance of goddess. The goddess is the object, the mirror of the world. God is the subject, the reflection, the self. I have that quote. Gods do, goddesses are. It's not, this is two energetic halves of reality, and we create something new between those two spaces, and not just new, like in fractal new. And so like there's this hiding from both the divine masculine aspect of God and the divine feminine aspect of God, because both of them are scary. The tyrant that needs to have control over everything, and that we have to fall in line and we have to be coherent and obedient, that divine masculine like tyranny, and the divine feminine like no ability to get anything done, like completely overwhelmed, like just like nature has taken hold. This is like where we have to look at the divine feminine in shadow and the divine masculine in shadow, and our relationship to those things, and how do we relate better than we are. This exchange between worlds, this fate, these paths, this Ace of Wands, how the inspiration can be transformed into matter, and how that inspiration can be transformed into consciousness that can inform that inspiration and can inform that matter. That there is a third element, that there is a trinity involved in all of this, and that there are these symbols that are the communication that we have with these aspects. It is a personal, deeply relating and related relationship, but it's not in some definitive control that we can comprehend what this divine genius has to you know, we're a part of the divinity. We're not above or below it, and there's some responsibility there in terms of what it means to sort of get like a handle, you know. And so when it comes to this divine feminine aspect of God, and the divine masculine aspect of God. And we're talking about giving and receiving and creating. And so we're gonna stop here. I want to kind of leave us to, our guys have kind of been saying to me lately that we need to be able to digest, we need to be able to sort of take some of these notes and kind of look at how we can like relate and grow and then like bite-size that and then come in with like, it's almost saying like, here's the theory and here's the practice. And so we're going to segue here, because where we have bringing the kingdom of heaven on earth by bringing in coherence, and the giving and receiving, how we give and receive with like the divine feminine aspect of God and the divine masculine aspect of God, both in relationship to their shadows and in relationship to their ascended aspects, like and knowing that is like a non-dualistic way of looking at light and shadow as something that is becoming, that we are a part of the becoming, that we participate with the becoming of. And so it's not a perfection that we are relating to. It's a process almost. And so like I want to look at the loss and replenishment of hope and the banishing of snakes and this King of Swords, because like the next part of the reading is really talking almost about like practicing what it is to give and receive, and to even understand these energies in a way that like allows for that to be something that you can trust. Because what you can't trust is that it's going to be like a perfect, easy breezy. But that sucks, right? Because we have to have a reward, right? Where's the reward? What you can trust is that like the reward is in the relating. The reward is in the participating. And so that's going to shift the way that we view trust in the divine just a little bit. And so we're going to talk about what it means to practice that next week, actually. Now, I don't think that I'm going to break things up in this way quite so often, but I do think I'm meant to do that today. So I'm going to do it I'm going to do part 1 and part 2. I'm going to be actually doing, you know what? I'm going to bring us back right to the spread, but I'm going to give us a week between. There's reason. So it's just going to leave. I am like a little disappointed too, but don't worry. We're going to get there. I promise. I promise you that you're going to be able to sort of chew on this for a little bit. Actually, before we end, there's a spell that I want to give you that's really, really powerful that came to me this week and that I worked with this week, and it's absolutely incredible. Because we're talking about relationship, and when we get into the practice of the relationship, which is where we get our true power and our true influence, not in a tyrannical like attempt to control the external environment. We get our influence and our power from a different place. And so there's a spell that I've been using that's so good for this. And so to explain what a spell is it's kind of, it's just like moving matter from within out, like moving things around. And so like when we certain statements are spells, and certain ways of thinking about things and personal narratives and mythologies, those are spells. But this is very particularly an extremely powerful spell that if you repeat it a number of times, especially when you're like a little bit nervous about something or you're not feeling your best, when you repeat this, you're gonna feel it. And so the spell goes like this: I am made of them that made me. Now, when you say I am made of them that made me, you're talking about the substance of the divine masculine aspect of God, the sun, and the substance of the divine feminine aspect of God, which is the earth and all of its forms. You're made of those two things. Now, you're also made of every aspect of the expression that created the gene pool, which you have traits from, that you are moving through the world with. And so you are all of that consciousness. You are the she, the we, and the I at the same time. So you are the expression of all those traits. You're participating in their consciousness. Their consciousness is infinite. That's the infinite being. That's the one and the whole that we're a part of, but we are still individual consciousness as well. And so when you understand that you're able to call forth a universe of power in the way of your divine masculine and divine feminine substances, and the expression within that creates your unique expression of both in different ways, in different proportions, in different, and this is the beauty of who you are, and when you're pruning and creating how that tree expresses. So when you say, I am made of them that made me, you're pulling in the power of all of that. And so we're not powerless in creation. We're meant to participate in creation coherently, in communication, intentionally. And so when we talk about the loss and replenishment of hope and the King of Swords, this is where we are right now. And when we come back, I'm going to move this stuff off and I'm going to move that over. And so next week, we're going to enter in at what is the practice of the belief of the stuff that we just kind of like came to. And so I'm so careful about belief and telling you what to believe, because I like proselytizing is not it ever. You know, the only leadership that I will ever offer is this is my vision. And if you resonate, cool. If something resonates, awesome. If some of it, not all of it, that's awesome. We're fine. We're trying to figure out, like, we're all, I think of spirituality as we all take acid and have a different trip, you know, but that the acid is something that's a common experience that we're having together, so we can talk about it and make sense of it in conversation. You know, it's really something very similar to that. And so, you know, sitting with this information, letting this information sort of percolate and alchemize and in any way that it is able to sort of inform your experience and to the extent that it resonates with your experience, you know, help you expand with it. Let's sit with this notion of relating to the divine in this way, not thinking of ourselves for 1 minute as being without an inexhaustible supply of resources. I am made of them that made me. Say it when you say this with the intention of embodying that truth. It's a truth, just like biologically, right? Like nature. I am made of them that made me. You are the expression of all the traits that came before you. You are the expression of the life that is existence. Like, it's a true statement. And when a spell is actually true, definitively true, and very rarely will that ever happen. You know, very rarely, like, will it ever happen that you can say, like, as within, so without, yep, checks out. Like, you know, it's not that it's very rare, but like, it's a point of coherence that is pure and therefore extraordinarily powerful. So rare is the wrong word, but like, use of it is very powerful because you can say it and you can believe it. It's the container and the belief and then the outcome. I am made of them that made me. So I want you to practice with that spell if you feel like it called you. I am made of them that made me. And to walk around with that prayer, I am made of them that made me. Because when we come back, we're going to look at what it means to be both I am made of them that made me and have some sort of capacity toward the power to like wield change and co-create. So let's leave it, let's do that. So we're gonna leave it there and we're gonna come back with the second half next Sunday enrichment. And so I'm wishing you guys the best week. There's so much going on right now. There's a lot of change. My channeling is getting stronger and stronger. I can feel for myself like things are coming through really strong for me. I'm excited for everywhere that we're going, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Your energies are all individually like beautiful. I see them and experience them. They're symbols. They really are. They're symbols, they're colors, they're essences. And you know, if I could show you, pull up the mirror and show you just the beautiful like way in which you all exist together. Just like this harmony that exists here. It's just really, really beautiful. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this. And so I'm going to leave it there with that gratitude, and I'll see you all again next week.